Our show's what you know. We'll always watch TV. And if you think we can't, we'll watch more and you'll see. That's why the people of the web believe in Jim from Las Vegas and Jacob from Sweden.
Shows What You Know, your television podcast. The boys are back. I'm Jim from Las Vegas.
And I'm Jacob from Sweden. And this week on Shows What You Know, we'll be talking all sorts of TV news. We'll be talking Game of Thrones spin-offs. We'll be talking the new Cobra Kai trailer. Harry Potter bullshit's going on as well. The Bear just came out. The Acolyte, the internet is ablaze. We have to chat about that. But I also have to start with, if you missed us last week, you got to check out episode 822, part 2 of Jim and Them to stay up on everything happening in the Shows What You Know cinematic universe. Be careful what you wish for. Yeah. I recommended the show Game Changer to Jim, and he went on to have an existential crisis on his other podcast about it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we were going to talk about that at all here, but yeah, I have gone down quite a rabbit hole watching the game show Game Changer, the Dropout TV's Game Changer. I've watched 6 episodes from the new season, I believe, and I'm still watching it. But yeah, I had quite an existential crisis as I started to learn more and more about Game Changer. Recommendation from Jacob from Sweden.
Yeah, well, we don't have to get too much into detail about it, but there was a very much a be careful what you wish for. Don't recommend me things. I might hate watch them and then get back to you on it. So if you have anything to say on that, we can get into it, but otherwise we can save it because we got a packed schedule, Jim.
Yeah. I mean, hate's a strong word. I don't know if I hate watch it really, but it's just a combination of external factors. And I didn't know going into this. Maybe Jacob mentioned this. I doubt it, though. Like, it's not like he would have. He didn't, like, leave out information that was that should have been given when he was recommending the show. But Sam Reich? Yeah. Is that his name? Sam Reich, the host of the show, made an offhand joke in one of the episodes about Nepo babies. And he's like, haha, look who's talking or something. I'm like, huh? What is he talking? What does he mean by that? And then I started digging a little deeper. And I realized that this man is like he comes from a very wealthy family. His father was on the Clinton administration's like presidential cabinet. I think his mother did something as well. And then I realized like, oh, okay. So, and then he like bought College Humor, runs this streaming service. He's, he's the cliche rich privileged guy. And it just so happens that a lot of these rich privileged children of powerful families, at least from what I've seen, a lot of times they end up in comedy for some reason. And I'm like, oh my God, what a coincidence that these guys are all so funny. It might not have anything to do with just all the time you have to just sit around and do whatever. And, combine that with my own, just my own insecurities or what have you at trying to make comedy on my own end. And I'm like, who the F is this guy? Who's this Sam Reich? Who does he think he is? And I guess, and you also compound that with the fact of what I had mentioned on this show. When I'm watching this show late, it's season 6. Technically, it's a game show. This isn't quite all my fault. It's partly my fault, but not fully. Because everyone knows each other, and I'm supposed to know who they are, but I don't.
Yeah.
And so, like I mentioned, they're all giggling and laughing with each other, and that just like makes me more like I thought I would just kind of start rolling with it as the episodes went, but all that happens is I just get more annoyed each time. I'm like, "What you're doing is not funny. Why are you laughing?" But anyways, that's the road I've taken so far watching Game Changer. Game Changer or Game Changers? Game Changer, right?
Singular, yeah, Game Changer. Well, Jim, the thing to remember is watch our intro at youtube.com/shows what you know. We too streaming service.
True.
It's a limited selection. True. We're working way up from the ground up, but there's no need to punch up so aggressive. Well, there is, because I relate to this as well. I'm also like, well, first of all, fuck anyone that is successful, especially at anything I want to do. You can be a successful doctor, because I fucking will probably need an operation at some point. Don't be successful in podcasting or anything I'm interested in, or I will be fucking furious about it. So I can relate.
Yeah, and I think it's the whole thing of like, I don't know what you call this, but the most common way people compare it to is like when you get a certain car and then you start seeing that car everywhere. But it's like that car has been there the whole time. You're just noticing it now, because now I'm like seeing Sam Reich in headlines about, I mean, he might be like hosting the Emmys or something like that. And I'm like, what I never even knew who this guy was weeks ago, and now I can't get away from him. Jesus.
Yeah, I understand. You know what else you can't get away from?
Yeah, what's that?
Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai, baby.
We have a Cobra Kai podcast, and maybe this is the episode that goes on our Cobra Kai feed that no one listens to because there is a new trailer for the new season of Cobra Kai. Am I right,
Yes.
Jim? It's coming out soon, like a couple of weeks from now.
Season 6, part one of 3. This will be, I guess it's 3 like mini seasons that are 5 episodes each. From what I've gleaned on, I mean, not to, now I have to. I was just punching up super high at Sam Reich, who owns a streaming network. I was about to punch up to Cobra Kai Kid, who's
Jim, please, let's call that punching down, even if it isn't, okay? The Cobra Kai Kid on YouTube.
I did see on social media that Cobra Kai Kid has seen all 5 episodes already. And, you know, classic me, I'm like, what the fuck? But anyways,
that is upsetting.
No, good for him. Cobra Kai Kid, if you don't know, he's a YouTuber. He is basically like the head of the fandom, it's cool. I mean, he's a young kid. We had him on our show when we were discussing the episodes, and I mean, props to him. He loves the show. He clearly loves the show. So it's nice on one hand to see someone that has like a genuine excitement, and to be fair to him, we lost that a little bit in the later, like with season 5 of Cobra Kai. It wasn't quite as gangbusters for us. I still love it because I love Cobra Kai and I love these characters, but it's getting a little shaky, and we are always concerned about that, not just for Cobra Kai in general. If you listen to any of our podcasts, we're always very concerned when something's good, because we're like, don't keep making it because you're gonna make it bad.
Shogun season 2, huh? Good luck.
But anyways, let's take a look in a quick trailer. This is actually coming very soon here to Netflix. I believe it's like the 18th or the 19th.
18th is right. And if on the off chance that you, dear listener, don't know anything about this and weirdly didn't subscribe to No Mercy, a Cobra Kai Kickback. It took me a second. That was our podcast on it. So Cobra Kai is a spin-off of The Karate Kid. We've mentioned it briefly on here before. There's 6 seasons. It's a very, very good show. Very silly show, but very good, I think. And yeah, maybe there was some dips, and we're about to see the last season now coming out in this year, basically. And going into next year. Are they just coming up with more and more annoying ways to release TV shows where it's like 5, 5, 5?
A little bit, and I have to wonder. I mean, we mentioned this before in a previous discussion about the initial announcement of this. There's something going on with a new Karate Kid movie that's coming out next summer, and I don't know if that's affected things as well, because Ralph Macchio is going to be in it. We're going to have to see how that plays out. But anyways, let's take a look here at the new trailer.
We've been through a lot to get to this point, but now we're finally on the same page.
We may have settled things in the valley, but now we have to be ready for whatever the world throws at us. The SWYK tournament is coming. Now is not the time to push out. You're gonna fight the best in the world.
Do I want to know what that's for?
Training, Rocky IV style. Gonna chop down a tree, carry it through the snow.
Now what could possibly go wrong?
No matter what life throws at you, you gotta stay on your feet.
Our strength is we teach both styles equally. Don't jeopardize that balance, man.
Since when do I run shit by you?
Since we have no idea what we're up against.
Only through pain does a champion reveal himself.
Yes, Sensei!
It's one thing to be the best in town, it's another to be the best in the world.
Just means I'm gonna have to be Robbie again.
I thought you were Miyagi-Do now.
You think things are better because now I'm training in your dad's backyard?
I think we have our strongest team.
I think they can handle anything.
Bitch, don't you know I know karate?
What's that?
Miyagi-san buried secrets for a reason. If we open, anything is possible.
One more secret from good old, at least one more secret from good old Mr. Miyagi. And I don't know if this is problematic for me to say, but the only thing I'll be satisfied with being in that box is a Mogwai. If you don't know what a Mogwai is, it's Gizmo from Gremlins. Anyways, the first time I watched that trailer, I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit. Watching it again, I'm actually way more hyped now. The main thing that, to be like a critical, I guess, piece of shit that I am, is like, I get that you got to kind of up the stakes a bit, but I'm not interested in them going to a world championship karate contest, tournament, whatever. The charm to me of the Karate Kid is that we're fighting for the valley. We're not fighting for the world. You know what I mean? And that's there's echoes here of like Karate Kid Part 2, which is why like Karate Kid Part 2, we watch and we're like, oh, it's like it's a death match now. Like it's still a good watch, but we're like, now we're fighting to the death. Like we're kind of losing the plot a little bit. At least that's kind of my first little quibble with it. It's great to see all the characters though.
Yeah, to me, I actually didn't mind the going to the World Championships bit because most of the other clips of the trailer right there are like them in the backyard. And I'm like, I do enjoy that. It's just that the show has meandered in that location for a couple of seasons. And it feels like is it just going to be more of the same? You know, when Johnny's like, since when do I run shit by you? I'm like, this feels like something that's played out since a few seasons ago. Now, I do need to refresh my memory maybe on the latest season. But in general, so when it was like, oh, World Championships, I'm like, okay, that's a clear new plot, something to build around. That could be good. I like that Hawk has a USA Hawk. He's colored his mohawk like the US flag. I like that. But I didn't. None of the beats that were revealed in there really hit me as like, whoa, can't wait to see that, because it really was like, nope, the kids are fighting again. The Karate Kids are fighting.
Well, a few things. Well, one of the beats that I really like though is Kyler doing like the flip side of the It's Cobra Kai from season 1 when Miguel beats his ass in the cafeteria. Like when he catches Kyler's punch and then whoops his ass, but he says it's Cobra Kai. But in this, he's like, don't you know I know karate, bitch? And he gets to beat someone up. I do kind of really like that. I'm with you on the Daniel, even though we love, like if you listen to our discussions, we talk for hours about how much we love the will they, won't they of Daniel and Johnny, especially how like for the first few seasons, they would always kind of rub up to being like best friends. It's just the problem is we're at season 6 now. So I mean, you can't fully put it to bed, but you can't keep going back to that well. The main thing that I'll give them is that they're doing a trickle down version of it where if it is like, you know, with the end of season 5, Cobra Kai for the most part is disbanded and we've taken these guys in. It is an extension of what Johnny and Daniel had between, you know, some of these characters now that have to intermingle and find that balance. So I'm on board for that. I don't know about the optics of like, you know, Kreese. I had to refresh my memory on the lady villain character, Kim Dae-eun, who's a a Korean, from what I had to remember. Like she's the daughter or the granddaughter of the sensei that trained Kreese and Terry Silver. But then it's like the optics of like him going to train a bunch of, either Korean or Japanese people. And then like a bunch of, I assume Americans then are going to go kick their ass. You know what I mean? Like,
if there was any logic at all, they'd just get their ass rocked. Like this, I would love kind of if this was all build up to like they all get their asses kicked immediately when they try to go outside the valley. Because you're a good. It's as she said, it's one thing to be the best in the valley. It's another thing to be the best in the world. I have to say as well, like there was nothing that really put me off either.
Sure,
I was just kind of left a bit like. I don't know. I was like, I don't know what the plot is. I could see that line from Johnny. I can't imagine that line of like, since when do I take orders from you? Hopefully that's not like the start of a fucking 3-episode arc about that.
Yeah.
It's just some banter, That's fine. They can do that as much as they want. I just didn't see that much plot there either. But if they're splitting it, it's only 5 episodes. You're not going to fit that much. They're not going to include things here, presumably maybe they will, but that are in like the last 5 episodes or whatever. So you got to take it bit by bit. There might be some major revelations. Maybe like the fucking World Championships is almost done by the time we get to the second part. I doubt that. I feel like the second part's going to be when they fly over and do the big thing. This is all going to be build up, but who knows? Yeah. While the trailer in itself didn't make me that excited, I am still very excited to actually see it.
Sean Kanan that plays Mike Barnes did show that you can see him blurrily in the background of one of the shots. He is also either another sensei or something. He's in the backyard when everyone's training because he's like, who's this guy? And I assume they wanted to maybe keep that a little secret, but he wanted to be like, come on, guys, I'm here too. Don't forget. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm excited. I just have some little quibbles here and there, but I'm excited to see what they do. But yeah, between the line that Daniel has, there's like the line Daniel has, but then he also says like, we need to teach each styles equally for balance. And it's like, all right, that can't be the whole, argument for the season again, because that's kind of what we already ran into.
And with Eagle Fang and everything, I feel like they kind of lost track of what style represents what as they start learning from each other. And like the big sort of thematic Miyagi-Do versus Cobra Kai has felt a little bit like it's been lost in the weeds of the plot. But maybe I need to refresh myself with a rewatch. And if you haven't seen it, dear listener, plenty of time before July 18th. Go back now and start season 1.
Well, and I'm sure, I guess they kind of already did this with Kreese, but they're probably going to have to do it again, where now Terry Silver will be the Hannibal Lecter type person they have to go visit in jail to get the insight into the mind of John Kreese. Like, what is Kreese got cooking right now? What's he got up his sleeve? I'm excited. We'll see. A lot of these younger characters I forget. I mean, was it Kenny? Who was the little kid? But I didn't see him with the team. He was like that Daniel's son was bullying. I don't know if he's still going to be a remaining actual Cobra Kai. And not to be the guy that like writes his own thing and then gets upset when they don't do it. But I'm still holding out hope that the only way to win is to take over Cobra Kai and become the new Cobra Kai.
Yeah, I mean, it's the name of the show. I'm shocked they didn't do that just then, but hopefully they can get the IP back from Kreese or whatever the fuck at the end there. But yeah, that's Cobra Kai. We'll get back to it very shortly. I have another piece of news here as well. As reported in the Belfast Telegraph, going local here, the filming has begun since our last recording on a new Game of Thrones spin-off. So there's so many of these, it's hard to keep track. They're constantly being cancelled and continued, it seems like, unless you keep really close tabs. But to keep you posted, this is the A Night of the Seven Kingdoms show, which is based on a fucking... it's like a novella series or 3-novel series. It's called the Tales of Dunk and Egg. So that's kind of like one of those George R.R. Martin kind of spin-offs that he did instead of finishing the series. And this is the This is the film version of that. So on June 18th, as reported in the Belfast Telegraph, cameras began rolling at Titanic Studios on A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, the second spin-off series based on George R. R. Martin's famed medieval fantasy novels. So it's actually also not just recorded or filmed in Ireland. It's also led by Irish actor and former professional rugby player for Connacht. I love that I am in Ireland, so it's not just going to say, he was a rugby player. It's going to say, like, for Connacht, because that fucking shit matters here. Peter Claffey, this is his first leading role. I was looking him up. He has been in a couple of things, but nothing major like this. He has a small role in Bad Sisters. He's in this BBC show I didn't know called, called Wreck. I never seen that. He has a brief appearance, I think, in Vikings Valhalla, the upcoming season, but all of a sudden, here's a leading role. He's also like done theater here in Dublin, where I live as well. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is a potential for just to add to the fucking tidal wave of Irish hunks that seem to be taking over acting.
Well, so what's the basic plot of this? What's this revolve around? Do you know?
Yeah, so the series, it follows a nobleman who takes the title of a knight and makes his way through the Seven Kingdoms. He meets a young boy who he takes as a squire, so I can only assume there's a sort of Mandalorian vibe there. And set 100 years before Game of Thrones, which is about 100 years after the events of House of the Dragon, the prequel series that is currently coming out.
Oh, so it's like the Acolyte.
Yeah, it's like the in-between. And yeah, so most of Game of Thrones was filmed in Belfast, or a lot of it was filmed in Belfast, but House of the Dragon actually wasn't. So this is the first time in I don't know, 6 years or whatever, that they're actually back shooting a full show here in Ireland. Although apparently, I found this out as well, there was a Game of Thrones spin-off show that they actually filmed a pilot for and then scrapped. That was here in Ireland as well, in Belfast. So that untitled series, it was supposed to star Naomi Watts, and I looked it up, and that was the one that was tentatively called Blood Moon, and that was supposed to take place 8,000 years before the Game of Thrones books, like the Age of Heroes, back in like the Long Night, the origin of the White Walkers, all that stuff. And they spent, $30 million on it, on like the pilot, and then they scrapped it, presumably because no one cares about the Long Night.
It almost feels like at that point, just release it as like an HBO movie or something. But then again, maybe
if it's not good, though, then it's just kind of tarnishing the brand and putting people off. Plus, it's probably not a complete thing, right? It's probably just setting up why you should watch the rest of the series that doesn't exist.
Ends on a cliffhanger.
But I think I never actually read these sort of spin-off, any of the extra stuff that goes with Game of Thrones. I read the main books, but not this bonus stuff. But it does seem like something that could potentially make for a good TV show. I mean, I'm obviously fucking obsessed with knights. Everyone knows this by now.
Oh, that's
right. So, I'll be watching it. But any thoughts on this, Jim?
Well, can we just have something take place 100 years after? Can we stop with this 100 years before? I guess I'm splitting hairs here. You could probably do the same exact story and put it 100 years ahead, but for whatever reason in my mind, that's cooler to me. I'm so sick of looking 1,000 years in the past or 200 years in the past. It's just like a minor quibble of mine. But I mean, if it's good, it's good. I'm down to check it out. I'm just hung up on all this prequel nonsense.
Yeah, I'm 100% on the same page, and I feel like that's kind of been our complaint for the last 15 years or so, they seem to not be listening. In this case, I do understand that everyone kind of hates the end of Game of Thrones, right? And also, George R. R. Martin might have other plans or ideas, but why wouldn't they just make that? Why not? If you're spending hundreds of millions on a show, why not just make I'll take a sequel over a prequel any day.
For good or bad, the show already exists. You already have that to work off of. Worst case, when he finally puts the book out, you could always just redo it and then redo whatever isn't the whole thing you're just gonna mine it until it's completely sucked dry of anything? So I don't know. Real quick though, since you brought it up, since we're keeping it nice and Irish here, I did see in the news this week that Derry Girls creator Lisa McGee just unveiled the lead cast for her Netflix comedy thriller series, How to Get to Heaven from Belfast.
Yes.
You watched Derry Girls, right?
I did, and I saw this item of news as well, actually. So I really like Derry Girls, obviously, and will watch anything she makes. So I don't
Now-
actually know anything about it, though. So do you have the deets?
Well, the basic gist, it's a three childhood friends now in their late 30s. They come together over news of a fourth friend's death, leading them on what's described as a dark, dangerous, and hilarious odyssey through Ireland and beyond as they try to piece together the truth of the past. So this is like a very, I'm not going to say it's like, it's not like it's familiar, like it's not ripping anything off, but it's like a familiar thing. It's always like the friends come together because of a death, and then like the adventure ensues. But it's enticing. I get why that's usually a good starting off point for whatever kind of adventure, because then you could either have flashbacks or whatever. You already have this built-in history with these characters who were so close at one point, and now they have whatever their differences are based off of the paths they've chosen in their life. I don't know if you recognize any of these actresses. One of them, Royce and Gallagher, was in a show called The Dry and the Lovers.
Do you want me to do the names?
Yeah, maybe you should. Yeah, all right. Yeah, fair enough. Because I don't know what a SWYK name is. The one that's like SAOIRSE, but that's one of the character names.
Oh, Saoirse.
Yeah, Saoirse.
Yeah. Roisin Gallagher, Sinead Keenan. Oh, I don't know this one. There's one that looks a bit like cauliflower.
Yeah.
Don't know that one.
Coifion Dunn.
Yeah. It's probably like
Coifion Dunn, eh?
Oh, this is bad now. I do have my partner can come in and consult, but we'll leave it until the show premieres. It sounds like grown up Derry Girls, which is ideal. Like if she was just like, I'm just gonna do a like, it's almost like I'm gonna do more of the same but like slightly different. I'm like, perfect. Let's see it. I love it.
Well, and also, I mean, I am like legit. I like these stories, and I think it's natural as you get older, because you like these stories, because you always just imagine like, oh, what about my old mates? See, I'm even saying mate like I'm in Ireland. What about my old mates from from primary school? What if we teamed up and went on a little adventure, one last adventure for old time's sake?
Yeah. What if we finally found out what the crack was? You know.
Anyways, but yeah, that was just when you brought up Ireland, I was like, well, we got to touch on some more news. You got to be a goddamn extra in some of these shows already.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually a lot of production of various movies and TV here in Ireland. I feel like I know multiple people who are extras in the Vikings TV show. Like at one point, there was just like an open casting call in Dublin because they filmed everything in Ireland for that. So there's a bunch of them. Maybe that's something I should look into instead of making podcasts. But here we are. Sure.
In other news, hey, the Harry Potter might as well be Irish. Harry Potter series at HBO. We're starting to get more of an idea of the vibe here. They announced the showrunner and Francesca Gardner, who was a writer on Succession, and also the director Mark Mylod, who also was a director, directed 16 episodes of Succession. He also directed 12 episodes of Shameless, 6 episodes of Game of Thrones. He directed the movie The Menu. So it does feel like there's some pedigree involved here. Although I looked at the showrunner, I got to correct it. She didn't write. She was a consulting producer for Succession. She wrote 5 episodes of His Dark Materials, which I never watched. She wrote an episode of The Man in the High Castle. So yeah, no, I'm not as excited now that I look at it. But producer on Killing Eve. But still some potential. Young up and comer. I guess what's the whole pitch with this is that these are going to be more the basic idea would just be it's going to be more faithful to the books because you have more time to kind of do like a season for a book or maybe 2 seasons for a book or something along those lines, right?
The movies were already too long. Like, they're already making 2 Deathly Hallows movies was a joke.
Yeah.
That's longer than it takes to read the book. And you made it boring as well. But I guess maybe it can be good. Maybe. But yeah, my thing with setting aside all the transphobia and tumult surrounding the author, my thing was always reading the books that I think they're really, really good for the first few books, and they still have a lot of good stuff in them, but basically they got so successful the editors stopped doing their jobs. Like, you can really tell in the 4th and 5th book, it's like, just throw everything in there. And, as a kid, I was like, this is brilliant, more magic shit, I like it. But there's very obvious things that you're like, why are there 2 magical goblets in the Goblet of Fire? Why would you not combine these 2 magical items? I'm not going to go on a whole tangent about it. Maybe I will, Jim. Is it okay if I go on a tangent about it?
Go for it.
In the Goblet of Fire.
Books.
You've seen the films, though. So
I have seen the films, yes.
In the Goblet of Fire, the film and the book, you note that there is, obviously, the Goblet of Fire is the thing you put your name into to get selected for the Triwizard Tournament, right? So that's a magical item, that's a cup, it's the name of the book, right? There's also another magical cup called the Triwizard Cup. That is the thing at the end of the book that Harry grabs that transports him off to through skullduggery into a dangerous location. So the thing that actually ends up bringing him to Voldemort is the Triwizard Cup. Now, why the fuck would you not combine these 2 magical cups? Especially because it's an ominous sort of, oh, Voldemort is out to get me. What is the plot? Why am I in this tournament? You have 2 magic cups in your book. Just make them the same cup so that the Goblet of Fire is the actual goblet that transports you to Voldemort, leads to Voldemort eventually coming back to life and all this bullshit. And they just have 2. Why? Any editor would look at that and go like, why would you not just make these 1 magical cup? It's just confusing. They're kind of similar looking. And you can see this in the film as well. But in the book, this is just one small thing, right? But there are like dozens of these things as you read on the book. So saying that it's going to be more faithful and take more room to involve like the SPEW plotline where Hermione's fighting for elves' rights, we didn't miss it. It's fine. You could cut that from the story. Cut the fat. But, I guess it could still be a good show.
Yeah, I think remembering that movie, I think I only saw that movie once. I think I just thought there was one. I don't think I realized there was 2 different ones.
That's what everyone does, because that would make sense.
Yeah, all right. Well, you don't think this will have like some sort of Game of Thrones type resurgence once it's in series form and we get to really live with these characters for a year?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe we shouldn't. But yeah. So when is this coming out? We don't know.
It's probably not. The first episode still won't be till like 2026. But it's just kind of interesting. Like, as you start to see the people that are going to be behind the camera putting it together, you get more of a vibe or an idea of what kind of pedigree they're going for. So, I mean, again, I don't really have much. Like, I watched the movies. I enjoyed them. I know the property. I've been to the theme parks. I enjoy it. I'm not, like, obsessed with it. And I also can kind of take it or leave it. I think it's, like, a well-done. Oh, that's, like, a well-done version of, like, building your own lore and world and, like, lovable characters. So it doesn't, like, hurt me that they're making a series of it. But I also don't care if they decided like a week later, you know what, we're not going to do that. It's one of those where I'm like, oh, yeah, that's cool. I'll check it out when it comes around. But I'm not married to the property that much where it affects me really either way. I do, as you saw in a few earlier episodes, I do have an animatronic owl, so I'm that invested in it. Mm-hmm. But that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, they already made the shitty Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them movies, so it's not like, oh, it's perfect, don't make a shitty Harry Potter thing. Like, of course you're going to make shitty Harry Potter things because it's money. And maybe they'll be okay, as I keep saying, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and then in other news here, Al Michaels, who I was explaining to Jacob is like, a sports broadcaster. He's a famous voice in sports here in the States. So NBC Universal, they're going to be, with the Paris Olympics coming up, he's going to be the voice of it, but he'll be delivering personalized recaps of the media company's coverage tailored to fans' specific interests. How are they going to do that, you ask, Jacob? Well, each morning on NBC's Peacock streaming, they'll deliver a video summary of the day's coverage built out of clips and high-quality AI recreation of Al Michaels' voice, which was trained using past appearances on NBC and matches his signature way of speaking. So this is the all-intrusive AI that people have been, warning us about. That's already here. It's already taken over. This is becoming the new normal. So what do we think about this? Just these the voice robots taking voices of people we know and just trying to, tailor to our own interests. What do you think, Jacob?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not the worst use of AI that I've seen, but the bar is pretty low there. I don't know who this person is. I Googled him. I was like, is he dead? Is that why they're doing it? But no, he's 79 years old. I don't know if he's still working or what, but I guess they're like, why is this necessary, Jim?
The only thing I can think of is because how they say like personalized. So it's probably just so they can have specific ads. Because that's really the only thing I could think of. I mean, I guess maybe they'd be like, oh, we won't talk about this sport because this person likes this sport. But then again, you could almost use AI in the sense of like having it just kind of cut things and dole it out based on your algorithm. But maybe it's just easier to AI it up, but then also sneak in like and don't forget to get 4 Hims boner pills or something like that, but it'll be in Al Michaels' voice. I mean, Al Michaels' quote is saying, when I was approached about this, I was skeptical, but obviously curious. Were you? Or did they just say, like, here's a bunch of money? Presumably.
And you don't have to do anything.
Well, even Variety gets a little snarky here. They're like, said Michaels, presumably the real one. So even they don't know. Are they talking to an AI? Then I saw a demonstration detailing what they had in mind, and I said, I'm in. NBC projects that nearly 7 million personalized variations of the, quote, Your Daily Olympic Recap on Peacock could be streamed across the U.S. during the games. All of them will be compiled from 5,000 hours of live coverage from the Paris Games, which will result in hundreds of clips. The recaps will come in the form of a 10-minute video playlist that will spotlight standout moments from the previous day while offering a look ahead at NBC's next primetime show. NBC says a team of editors will review all content, including audio and clips, for quality assurance. Because that's always the thing that happens with this. Because it's already like, I get that we could kind of do this, but it's clearly not there. I don't know if you've seen like some of the AI fails with like Google's AI that they throw in, where there was a thing like where someone Googled Natalie Portman and like the Google Meta or whatever it's called, the AI recap it gives you at the top of the search results was mentioning that Natalie Portman does a lot of cocaine and something or other because of her SNL rap. Like it basically scrubbed the SNL rap and was like, oh, she does yay and went to prison and just throws it in.
lots of famous examples of that recently as they rolled out their AI summaries that are like, I've seen them referenced a bunch of times, the same things, but basically like recommendation that you should eat 1 small rock per day, which is from an Onion article. I saw gasoline, and you can add a gasoline to spaghetti to give it a little bit of an extra kick. All this stuff that shows up at the top when you search for very simple questions. So forgive me if I'm not super I already didn't give a shit about the Olympics anyway, but forgive me if I'm not excited. I found another quote. I was just Googling this and I'm Googling it ironically, and I'm on Forbes. I was frightened and astonished at the same time, Michael said in an interview. Neither one of those are necessarily positive. He also said he decided to greenlight it because, quote, AI is here, ready or not, here it comes. You can resist it or embrace it. I choose the latter. Again, nothing positive about what he's saying about what's actually happened there. But yeah, sure, whatever. Who gives a shit? Yeah. Fuck us, I guess. This is all just to increase. Has nothing to do with people's experience. It has everything to do with increasing the stock price. Like, just throw AI into everything because it's a buzzword that investors like. Just throw some AI shit in there, and you can increase your price for nothing, for air and theft. But that's the world we live in.
The future upside is like, I mean, obviously I'm not privy to whatever kind of deal he has to sign for this, but I'm sure there's some sort of ownership in perpetuity where like, yeah, they're using it now. And then when he does shuffle this mortal coil and he's no longer with us, they're like, hey, remember that deal he signed? We could still use his voice for shit. This rocks. Let's keep going. But that's I mean, I, for one, welcome my AI ghosts to continue to haunt the internet after I'm long gone. So
just continue giving sort of unpalatable takes on TV shows, complaining about Samurai long after you're both dead. Well, it shows what you know. 999. We finally break the mold. We know all about this. Just check out the podcast about television on showsthatyouknow.com.
Yes. There were a few other things, but I think maybe we should move on. That's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough doomsday news for the day.
Yeah. Why is everything was depressing? I guess Cobra Kai is good.
Yeah, Cobra Kai is
I'm
good.
just like, oh, yeah.
Actually, so.
No?
What TV shows have you been watching? Tell me, I gotta know.
Now, Jacob, actually, I might be asking this to myself first because I think that you have a couple repeats you've been watching, correct?
Correct.
Besides one of our main discussions.
Yeah.
So real quick then at the beginning, I kind of didn't even put this together that, oh my God, this was a TV show that I've been watching. It's a quick docuseries that was on Vice. It's called Who Killed WCW? Now, for people that don't know, WCW is World Championship Wrestling. I'm an old school wrestling fan from back in what they call the Attitude Era, the late 90s and early 2000s of wrestling, where it became like Jerry Springer-fied or more reality-based and, I guess, in the gutter more. Like, it just became like, girls in bikinis and having sex with your uncle or whatever the fuck. It became funny. Middle finger to your boss and tearing down the corporation and the dead man walking and putting together a ministry of occultists. These are all things that happen in wrestling. But for people that don't know, there's a thing called the Monday Night Wars. WWF, the main company, there's the first company to basically take wrestling from what were called territories. Like there was like the Northeast territory, there was South, Midwest, whatever. Basically, wrestling is a carny thing. It's a carnival act of carnies traveling town to town and wrestling in front of local audiences. Now, Vince McMahon Sr. owned the WWF, and then his son, Vince McMahon Jr., bought it from him. And he was the first one to really take it national or international even. That's where the Hulk Hogan's and the Andre the Giants, those were guys in territories that he made into huge stars. And that built through the 80s. And then in the 90s, WCW was a thing. It was like a remnant of one of the other southern territories, NWA maybe, something like that. And they ended up on a cable network, Turner Broadcasting. Ted Turner started this network, and he loved wrestling. A lot of executives didn't. In the end, it ended up with two wrestling shows on Monday night. You had WWF's Monday Night Raw, and you had WCW's Monday Nitro. So this docuseries, a lot of stuff I was familiar with. It kind of gets into how that battle played out and how WCW did ultimately end up being the loser in the situation after essentially changing the business and making it that more reality-based, kind of adult-oriented thing where wrestling was more of like a kid's thing. And it's it's pretty well done. It has a lot of different players that were involved in it, like Eric Bischoff's one of the main guys that turned WCW around to the point where they were beating WWF, which was unheard of at the time, and they was beating him for 84 weeks in a row, beating him in the ratings, and that all crumbled and fell apart, and it ended with Vince McMahon buying the WCW and taking it over. The Rock, who was a wrestler for the WWF, his production company made this docuseries, so he's featured in it quite a bit. I think even if you're not a wrestling person, it's still interesting to watch, because to me, I don't watch wrestling anymore. I don't like it. I think it's really lame. But the most interesting thing to me are a lot of these behind the scene things and how the politics played out and the drama behind the scenes in the real life between some of these larger than life characters out in the ring, and how it was playing out behind the scenes. So I would recommend it. It's Who Killed WCW. I don't know if it aired on any other network or if it's streaming on Hulu or anything like that, but I know Vice aired it, so I think they have a streaming something or other.
What's the balance in how they've made it? Is it for people who know nothing about wrestling, or is it more for people who already have an interest in the era, or is it finely balanced between the two?
I think maybe if you know absolutely nothing about it, it'd be tough. But I mean, if you just even have a passing understanding of like who Hulk Hogan is and like stuff like that, I think it's made for you. Because again, there's a lot of stuff that I kind of knew, but you hear from more of the players, and they talk a little bit more about some of the executives and how that stuff worked, especially the way it played out with Turner. Because I don't even know all the specifics behind that, but like Time Warner merged with AOL at the time, and Ted Turner, who like owns like CNN and like these other networks, he was like a Southern guy that liked wrestling, but all these other people in the company didn't like it. They're like, why do we have this stupid thing? It looks bad and it costs us a lot of money. Even if it's making money, it like comes across as this yokel thing. But anyways, they get into stuff like that, but I think that would be interesting either way, because it's just the classic. If you're interested in anything around like movies, TV, or creativity and how it's show business, the classic clash between people that are creative and actually making a business behind it and making sure that you're making money.
Yeah, I mean, what do you feel about Dropout TV and Sam Reich? I probably feel about wrestling, not so much in that I wanted to do it, but more like the why the fuck are these people giggling aspect. So I'm like, get the fuck out of my face. But you know, I'm more likely to enjoy a doc because it's so foreign to me, kind of in a boys state kind of way, like what the fuck is going on over there, or a doc about a cult or something like that. So maybe it is something I need to add to my list, Jim.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to hear your take on it as far as how they spell it out and how accessible it is. In my opinion, I think they do break it down pretty well, where even if you don't know who these people are, if you just kind of have an understanding of what like wrestling is and how it's an opiate for the masses, I suppose.
Yeah, it's gladiatorial games, right?
Yeah, of course.
But anyway, yeah. Okay, cool. So I assume the next one is Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. That's the next one you've watched.
That's right. Not yet. I've been watching Game Changer, man. I
know. I fucking heard all about it on Jim and them.
I still have like, well, at the time I had 50. Now I have like 53 more episodes to watch of Game Changer.
True. Well, wait until you find out about Make Some Noise, the Game Changer spinoff.
Ooh, how many episodes?
It's like 3 seasons. So.
Oh, Jesus.
Yep. Well, 4 episodes sounds good of this documentary, so we'll see. I think our other what TV shows have you been watching are.
Have you been watching? Tell me, I gotta know.
I know I should know better than to say it when I can just sing it like that.
That's true.
But I think our other 2 ones are pretty much aligned, right? We've been watching The Acolyte. We've been watching The Bear. Now, I tried to get up to date on The Bear so we could discuss the new season of The Bear in detail, but I have not managed to get up to date and watch the latest season of the 3 seasons. I'm about on episode 6 of The Bear season 2, Fishes.
So
I just watched.
So not any season 3 at all. So
no,
I mean, I know you're not up to date. Like, it's funny because I expected you to be like, I'm not up to date. I've only watched like 2 or 3 episodes. It's like, I'm not up to date. I'm negative 4 episodes to
No, I've watched
3.
16 episodes, Jim.
No,
I've watched the season and a half.
Well, that's good because, did you watch any of The Bear beforehand, like last year or like the year before when it premiered or anything like that? and just
I watched
like
the
tapped
first
out?
episode.
Okay.
I watched the first episode like a good while ago, before season 2 came out, I think. And now I'm currently watching season 2, and then I'm going to watch season 3. But yeah, I don't know how much we want to get into it. You've obviously seen the new season, so we can talk spoiler free about the whole thing. I can also say, not that anyone's interested in. Oh, yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I'm actually interested in, before we even talk about season 3 at all, I'm interested in your take now. You know, what was it originally when you just watched the first episode, didn't watch anymore? Did you just dislike it, or it just didn't hook you, or you know, what was the thing there? Just other stuff was on?
Yeah, no, I actually did like it, but it was kind of the stressful, intense atmosphere of the kitchen that I was like, this is very good, but it's not a relaxing show that I'm going to flip on. You know, I need to, like, it was always like something I thought I would get back to. It was never like, oh, fuck this show. And then I just heard more and more positive things about it. And I'm like, okay, definitely got to check it out now. Because the way it's shot and cut. So if you don't know, The Bear takes place in a kitchen, and kitchens are very stressful places to work. And they've really done a great job of capturing that. And there's a lot of aspects of mental health and family relationships and all these things that make it, for most of the episodes being 30 minutes long, it's very intense 30 minutes, especially the pilot, I would say, and some other episodes that get very intense as well. So it was more that didn't put me off, but it was more like, it's not something I'm going to flick on just casually.
Sure.
But now I've flicked it on casually.
So what do you think so far then, after binging the first season and like about half of the second season?
Yeah, I'm a fan. It's interesting. You mentioned when we were chatting about the trailer for season 3 that you were kind of opposed to the move to fine dining, and I realized watching season 2 and getting into it, I'm like, that's what they've been doing. But I found that transition to be a little bit not clunky, but like basically the first season, and there's no spoilers, but the first season they're operating in this grubby kitchen that's like the main character's brother's restaurant that he's taken over, and it's run down and it doesn't work, and he's like a super good chef and like trying to make things work, but also there's lots of problems. Every episode has like 3 new problems introduced. So there's that, and then at the end of the season they are able to go like, maybe restaurant, and then in season 2 they're kind of making the restaurant into something different. I also thought that they were going to stick with like, fine dining is not that it's shit, but more like, we're doing food for the working man and we're going to do it really good and put it together. But then watching season 2, I was like, oh, that's not really where they're going from the start here. It seems like they're kind of like, yeah, they're going for a Michelin star, and I'm like, okay. I mean, I have had a Michelin star meal that cost me about €1.50 at like a hawker center, so it's not impossible to do something like that, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I agreed with your initial opinion that like, shouldn't they just be leveling up where they're at rather than trying to emulate these fine dining experience? But so far in what I've seen in season 2, that's what they were going for the whole time, and it's almost weird that they don't discuss it more, and that characters in the show aren't more like, wait, what are we doing here? Everyone's just kind of on board with making the fancy restaurant where they could barely run a normal restaurant.
No, that's what I mean though too, not so much just by the end of season 2, but yeah, the whole, even though I did like season 2, but the just general direction I didn't understand, because you can end season 1 and be like, we're going to make our own thing. But yeah, making your own thing doesn't mean that, like, yeah, now we're doing this fine dining, especially because until season 2, most of season 1, fine dining is pitched as like the bane of Carmi's existence and the thing that burnt him out and put him in this point where he was sleep cooking and almost burning his house down at one point. You know what I mean? They kind of, I don't know if it's almost a retcon. I guess the creator could argue with me and be like, no, it's not a retcon. But season 2 feels like they were like, oh shit, we better show that there were good experiences in fine dining, because otherwise, why are we building towards fine dining? Because now we get to see that he worked with other people. And actually, I mean, I don't know. I'm not too concerned about talking about things from season 1 and 2, but season 2 does like do a thing where almost like you see that some of these things are connected in a way, as far as what other people's experiences they're going through and who they're interacting with. And I hate when people do this, but I'm going to do this to you. The 7th episode I love in season 2, so the one you're about to watch. Everyone talks about the fishes or the 5 fishes or whatever that one's called, which is good because it's got a lot of guest stars in it, and it's got classic bear family tension and arguments around Christmas. But episode 7, Forks, is really great and a nice kind of payoff for a character. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's season 3. It's still a really well-made show. It's got great performances. I just finished it last night. I finished all 10. I thought I was only gonna finish like 6 or 7, but I was like, fuck it, I'm watching all of them now. It's 2 a.m. Let's watch them. One thing I will say before I get into any like just general, because I'm not gonna spoil specifics, but even before general thoughts, this is gonna go against things I've said on this show many, many times. And every time the bear comes out, all these people come out of the woodwork and they talk about how, why is the bear dropped all at once? Why is it dropped? Why is it not dropped weekly? And if you've heard us on this show, we always talk about that. We always say, why are these shows just, dropped for us to binge in a weekend and forget about it? In a rare exception to me, the bear, I think, benefits from being dropped altogether. I don't think it's a week-to-week show. I think you could enjoy it that way, but I think it's a better show to be able to watch either whether it be you binge it over a weekend or all in a row or just like at your own leisure. I don't think it would see added benefit as a weekly show. That's my hot take, because I see all these people, and every summer like clockwork when this show comes out, at least for the past 3 seasons, you always see these think pieces about how they're doing a great disservice to the bear. And in a weird, because they're like, we would be talking about this show for months if they just put it week to week. But weirdly enough, we are talking about it for months because they're always saying the bear should be weekly. Because around 7 weeks after it's, actually last year, 6 weeks after it debuted, they were like, we'd be just getting to the 5 fishes right now. And it's like, yeah, well, you're still talking about it, so you're proving your point wrong. But anyways, especially season 3, because I saw some mixed reviews on it. It's still a very solid show. It takes chances with some of their episodes. They do. It's got a great look. They do cool things with editing and flashbacks, and the performances are great. But season 3, it's very aimless, and overall, as a show, it's still great. As a season of television, it's very unsatisfying.
Okay. Yeah, because that's...
well, hold on, just not to cut you off, just to throw a stupid button on it, like, this particular meal was taken out of the oven a bit too early. Or too late. I don't know. One of them.
Yeah. So, yeah, this season I saw it has the biggest disparity between the critic score, which is still very high, and the audience score, which is not low, but it's like a bigger range between the two than we've seen for previous seasons. I say, as someone who hasn't seen it. But I think what you said about watching it all in one go makes sense as someone who's done that for a lot of it just recently, because the episodes are 30 minutes. They pack a lot of stuff in there. Sometimes they're 60 minutes. But the plot actually is not that complicated, I think, in this show. It had the more straightforward the plot, almost it benefits more because it's very interestingly shot. It does very interesting things with how it's put together, and it is billed as a comedy drama, which I think it lives up to well. And the basic story, I realized only like halfway through season 2, but I'm like, the story really is just, we were traumatized by food, so food is everything. That's our plot. Yeah. That's the whole family. This is what we're all about. And that's a good hook. That's a good way of doing things. it also leads sometimes to, sometimes it's not that things feel rushed at all, but sometimes I'm not too gone on how some of the conflict is set up. Like it feels a little heavy-handed. There's in season 2, the conflict between two of the main characters, it's kind of like 4 people in a row saying like, be careful who you partner with. You have to make sure you trust your partner. But it's like literally in a row, this in a montage, a bunch of people saying the same thing. And I'm like, yeah, I wonder where this is going, But the fact that I can just blast through the season anyway, it means that that's not a problem at all.
Yeah. And not to get too specific, but from stuff from season 1, like there are parts when Marcus and Sydney are, to me, they're like legitimately bad at their jobs. And the show wants us to be like, Carmi is such a bad boss. Like there's a point when all the shit's going down, like in that, I think it's in that like 18-minute episode that's kind of real time because everything gets fucked up with the pre-orders and the orders just keep zipping out and everyone's geeking out. And there's a point where Marcus, the baker guy, is just fucking around, like making, and he's like, are you fucking with me?
I finally made the perfect donut.
Yeah,
Look at it.
But I think the show is kind of, I mean, I know like Carmi's a bit out of line there, but also Marcus is doing badly. Like he's not doing well at his job. And there's other moments where I feel like Sydney's not doing, like Sydney comes in and I get she's smart and does ground Carmi and he needs her a lot. But there's sometimes where she's clearly a subordinate and she's saying stuff like, fuck you, Richie, fuck you, Carmi. And like if Carmi reacts to it, it's like a bad thing. And it's like, whoa, why did you do that? But I don't know. That's just like my little quibbles we have. And it's reminiscent of when we watched Sopranos. Like when we'd watch Sopranos and there's a point where there's many scenes like this, but one of the scenes where Tony opens his fridge and I think what is it? Is like his mugu beef or something like that's kung pao beef or something's gone, and he fucking slams the door and he's like, "Who ate my fucking shit?" He's like, "I've been dreaming about that mugu beef for the whole way over here. Who ate my fucking shit?" And there's points where I maybe relate too much to that, where I'm like, "What is the problem here?" And there's sometimes in the Bear with all the like, because you're like, oh, it's just too stressful. But there's sometimes I'm watching, I'm like, yeah, this is what you do. Isn't this what happens? Not to be like, oh, I'm so tortured and genius or whatever. But sometimes I maybe relate too much, and then I'm sitting here realizing like, oh, that's not how things are. All right, fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah. I did Google like all different characters like mental health because I'm like, I'm pretty sure the mother's bipolar. Let me look into this and like try to diagnose the different characters. But yeah, I'm sure we'll talk more about the Bear. Well, actually, we're going to do it more about the Bear in 5 minutes, but more about the Bear season 3 next time. I just wanted to say this whole move to fine dining, the Bear going from their sandwich shop into fine dining is like Cobra Kai going to the fucking world championships. You may be the best in the valley, but you're not necessarily the best in the world. In season 1, these people are not qualified. Like the crew that he has are not qualified to do any of these things.
No.
They have a bit of money. Yeah, you should probably... You could make it work because you're good at cooking, Carmi, and you're good at whatever, but you're not good at running a business. And the people, you finally made a good donut, Marcus. The kitchen is finally not the worst spot in the world. So let's ratchet up the tension by going into a completely different genre of cooking that presumably ratchets up the prices and alienates the local community. And fuck us, I guess. But I think it's interesting all the same. I felt like there was like just kind of a scene or two missing maybe to set up the direction of the whole show. But yeah, that's where we're going.
It's just weird because to me it's like I guess that shows that I'm on brand because I'm not that interested in going into a Cobra Kai World Championship, and I'm also not as interested in seeing them get a Michelin star. Like I was on board with them taking this shitty hole in the wall, but like, hey, we got something with this sandwich. We could make a nicer restaurant. And I mean, I'm not going as far as there are many think pieces about the gentrification of the Bear or like the acceptable gentrification of the Bear. So I'm not going that far, but there are those think pieces if you want to find them and read them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we have one last show then. We just discussed it a moment ago.
Well, do you? Oh shit!
Yeah. Thank you.
Have you been watching?
Surprised.
Tell me I gotta know.
What TV
just
show? The Acolyte. Sorry.
Sorry. No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I'm not surprised that your finger's not hovering over that button all episode. That's what I would be doing if I had that power. But yes, The Acolyte. We're currently, as at the time of recording, 5 episodes of The Acolyte are currently out. Everyone else is getting hella hits by shitting on The Acolyte online, so we thought, why wouldn't we? This is still a spoiler-free discussion, so Jim, we haven't had a chance to check in about this show in a while. Where are you at on The Acolyte?
I'd say the most recent episode I was on board for. And again, maybe it's because going back to our original discussion of the first 2 episodes, I feel like they were doing some cool stuff with the action. And I guess, when this show focuses more on the action, not to be all like, oh, duh, give me action. But I think it handles it really well. I mean, there's a lot of lightsaber fights going on, well choreographed, well done. We got to see some actual character deaths. It feels like a lot of if you watch some of these Star Wars properties, there's been a running gag where like people get stabbed with lightsabers, like impaled, and they keep surviving. Not necessarily the case here. We even get to see like someone's head get snapped. I mean, I guess I'm bordering on spoilers, but which is a pretty brutal death for Star Wars. And it's winning me back. Like I said, I was kind of a little iffy after the 3rd episode because we started getting a little wonky. But also not just that it was wonky, it just felt boring and like more of a waste of time. I always get, whatever reason, there are things that read in my head when I feel like I'm wasting my time. That really turns me off. If I feel like there's a difference between your time being wasted and like a story just being intrigued or something being like just held out of reach a little bit longer, then to sometimes it feels like a waste of time. That felt more like a waste of time because we didn't even get much out of it that we won't have to revisit soon. But I'm fairly positive. I get why all these people are negative because it gets you millions of hits and subscribers.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, the this one is week to week, right? We're usually on board with that. I feel like this one, as a viewing experience, maybe it would benefit from just watching it all in one go, because I watched 4 and 5 in a row, and I think that made me end up in a much more positive space than I would have been otherwise. Also, they're not necessarily benefiting from the discourse online, but then all publicity is good publicity, isn't it? When we talked about episode 3, I was a little bit more positive than you, but I realized after the fact, it fully killed my excitement. Like, even if I didn't hate the episode at the time, I just didn't go back and, like, when 4 came out, I didn't watch it. Episode 6 is almost out, and I've only just kind of watched them all now. And going back to this show after a while is tough. The dialogue, it feels clunky. No more so than many other Star Wars films and media, for sure. Like, but it's still like, this has just got a weird tone to it. It feels kind of like the Star Wars prequels, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I guess people like that, and that's part of what makes Star Wars Star Wars. But the dialogue and just the way people are walking around these sets, I was like, none of this like feels particularly real. But then episode 5 had a bunch of fighting, and I was like, oh, give me good fighting. I enjoyed that. So I guess, and I do like that there are deaths, not to get specific, but like looking at the cast list, they're usually you wouldn't see this amount of characters dropping is what I'll say, which is maybe a spoiler in itself, but I think that's fine to say that. And I didn't expect that. And tonally, this show is a bit weird, I think, because some of the Star Wars stuff, and like, you know, the main character has a pet robot, and it's like, what's the matter, R2D2 but
Pip.
Smaller, and it's Pip, and it's like bleep bloop bleep bloop. I'm like, oh, that's so weird, Pip, get him. And then it's like people getting their fucking necks snapped, and I'm Like these are different shows, kind of, and it's a weird tone. And honestly, I'm not particularly on board with it, but I will say this show is at least it's progressing at a steadier clip than you'd think. Like because things were not that things were standing still, but like the setup episodes, those bad parts really stand out. I think you can deal with a bit of clunky dialogue if it's in the middle of a fucking badass action scene. And I do like as well, not to get specific, but I like the sort of setup for the rest of the season. I think we're in a good spot to explore what really happened all those years ago from where we're at right now, and not do a fucking another flashback episode. And I like the way some of these characters are going. So I it's a mixed bag for me. Overall, not loving it. It's no Andor, but I guess we knew that after episode 2, you know?
Yeah, well, and the thing is, it's not really beating the criticism of most streaming shows where, like, like most streaming shows, I'll be like, this isn't really a show. This is a movie that's just stretched out over 6 episodes. But even if this is that, it's not, it's a good version of that so far, I would say, because it doesn't feel like, I mean, again, outside of the things I had with episode 3, just because I feel like it's not so much I had that many problems with what they were doing. It's just, it felt like we're going to have to come back to it. So it felt kind of like a waste of an episode. Whereas everything else, like you said, it feels like things are progressing at least, and I'm looking to see where it's going. So yeah, I understand that, you know, you can have nitpicks about stuff as far as, does it break lore? Does it go against lore? There are characters that they've had to change their, there's like one character that's in the prequels that's in the show. So they had to kind of adjust that character's birth date depending on, to make them make sense being here in the show. Stuff like that.
I don't care at all about any of that.
I do and I don't. I only care. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt to finish the show, like at least the season. So if that character ends up being there for a reason, then I'm like, cool, that's fine. That's okay. Change the birthday. It doesn't affect anything else. If that character is only there to be like, look who we got it. Remember this character from here? That's the only reason. Then I'm like, all right, that's stupid. Why did you even do that? I don't think it breaks lore. I'm not even concerned about it breaking lore. It's more so, don't just throw in an Easter egg and have to change everything because you felt like throwing in an Easter egg. That's really all it comes down to.
Yeah. And, you know, last time we chatted, I did do a theory about 2 of the characters actually being the same character, which I wasn't actually pitching necessarily, but the reason I was seriously considering it was that stuff surrounding those characters just felt a bit off and weird. And I realized now that's just kind of how the show feels at times. So the scenes that were sticking out to me as like, this is a bit weird that they did it this way. This must be setting something up. I think they were just not well done scenes. And, you know, that's okay. There's just quite a few of them in certain episodes, and we will see at the end of the season how those scales balance out, whether there's more good than bad in the Acolyte.
And the only other weird tidbit is, like, they've been asking the showrunner about season 2, and I didn't even think of, like, this show having a second season. But according to what she said is that, look, yes, I do have idea. If we were able to do more, we'd do more. But I was not thinking about that at all, making this season. She did bring up the god himself, Vince Gilligan, which it's always nice to hear, because she said, like, you know, it's not like Vince Gilligan was thinking about X, Y, and Z for later on in the show, but he did think of ways to work that out. So, like you're saying, she's saying the right things at least. Like, I'm so sick of everyone trying to be like, oh, I've mapped out 4 seasons. No, don't get me wrong. I like that you could do that, but then make the first season satisfying before you're too concerned with what the later seasons are going to be. So as long as you can answer the questions that you're posing, or end in a satisfying way, but still have maybe threads to explore, fine. But don't give me bullshit and then end on a cliffhanger and then never have, and then don't get picked up anyways. You know, that type of, that there's that balance. So if you could do a if you can Vince Gilligan it, where you're just smart and you can answer most of your questions, but then look back at stuff later on and figure out how to, recontextualize something, then fair enough. That's that's really the main issue.
Yeah. Well, speaking of ending in a satisfying way and cliffhangers, I actually think that since we're going to talk about The Bear next time, season 3, we should save and tease the fact that we're doing a Shipping Up to the Bear next week, which is, of course, the game show everybody loves, where Jim guesses what fan fiction relationships are the most popular within a certain fandom. So we do have that set ready to go. I will update it, so maybe there'll be
for
new
an example. Just one quick example, and I'll play the intro, and I just want to say one obvious one, and just tell me if it's on the list.
Yeah.
Wait, that's the wrong one. Hold on, I'm playing the wrong jingle. One second.
Okay, good. What TV shows have you been
I'm shipping up to Boston. Whoa. I'm shipping up to Boston. Whoa. I'm shipping up to Boston. Whoa. I'm shipping up to find my wooden gem.
So now, just to put everything on Front Street, we're guests. This is based off archive of our own's fanfic, based off of like the current tally. We judge it on like who has the most fanfics is probably the most famous ship. Correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
So I need to throw out the obvious as a little teaser for when we get into this more. Carmi and Sydney have to be number one, I would imagine.
Carmi and Sid is the number one ship. That's kind of a gimme.
Yeah.
That's an easy one. It's got more than like twice of any of the other ones. Yeah, it's big. It's in there. It's got she's a young girl working for a guy and he's a genius, but he's kind of crazy. And yeah, it's got all the aspects you want. And besides, I will have watched season 3 by next time, so maybe we can get more into this. Maybe we should start with Shipping Up to Boston. The Bear. But they are building it as like a slow burn romance, or they're kind of contrasting her against his romantic relationship, and when he goes off doing romance stuff, he's not doing kitchen stuff, and there's just a wealth for all the fanfic authors to work with there. So yes, that is number one on the top 5.
I've read through, there was like a 20 or 30 page Twitter page, 30 tweet thread of like with screenshots from the show and how it connected like Carmi's dish with Sydney and how they're soulmates. And then season 3 plays into that a little bit more as well, even though they've gone on record saying that they probably wouldn't break that romance barrier between Carmi and Sydney. And I'm excited for you to finish season 3 because there's a low-key hint at, I think, one of the next big ships for the Bear. So I'm excited to talk about that. Leave them on a little teaser for the next episode of Shows What You Know. Real quick, though.
So this is the ship they say is unsinkable.
It is unsinkable.
It is unsinkable. Yes, the Sid Carmi ship. More on that next time. The only last note I had was that if they do make a season 2 of The Acolyte, it should be The Acolyte 2. That it should be spelled with the number 2 at the end. I was trying to figure out where to fit it in, but I think it's at the end of the word Acolyte 2. I know it doesn't make sense, but that's what it should be.
So you don't think it should be Acolyte 2, like TOO, like another? There is another one of those.
It could be. yeah. Act 2 Light is another one where they're act lights. Yeah, I like the too light, too furious, too acolyte. We'll workshop it for next week.
We'll figure it out. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Shows What You Know. showswhatyouknow@gmail.com. If you want to share your thoughts, what have you been watching? What do you think of The Acolyte? What do you think of The Bear season 3? What do you think of AI taking over all of our entertainment? Please let us know. You can also find us on TikTok. Please smash that like button on YouTube. Hit that.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Hit the subscribe and the bell. All that good stuff.
All the things you do them all. Do it for us, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone. We our show's what you know. We'll always watch TV, and if you think we can't, we'll watch more and you'll see. That's why the people of the web believe in Jim from Las Vegas and Jacob from Sweden.